Have you heard about the great resignation? A huge number of people are resigning, and 42% are thinking about changing jobs. The pandemic has put us in touch with our mortality and our fragility. And that suffering is leading to people looking for more meaning. But how can you find your purpose when you're so busy and you have to bring bread on the table? Today I'm talking to Tony Martignetti, the inspired purpose coach. He guides people to find clarity in their lives so that they are energized, fully present, and unstoppable. Hi, Tony. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So good to see you.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have a fellow podcaster on my podcast. It's always nice. You have probably lots of experience, and I really like what you're doing. I also like your topic, of course, which is inspired purpose coaching, which will really help our listeners because a lot of them are looking for inspiration, but especially are looking for more purpose or more meaning in their life. So
Yeah.
maybe you can tell us a little bit who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I'm a person who came from the world of biotech. That's the kind of background I came with. 25 years of experience in the corporate world. And when I got into the coaching world, I started to work with leaders who are accomplished, but have gotten to this place where they feel stuck in their journey, asking questions like, what's next? What's the next thing on my journey? And what I really love about the work that I do is that I get people to really feel that connection with their inspired purpose, hence the name of my company and the work that I do. It's this connection that they see something bigger than they ever thought was possible. And sometimes that is just looking at the work they're doing right now in a different view, changing the lens of how they're seeing the work they're doing. You don't have to leave corporate or, take a completely different path to get that inspiration.
Yeah, I completely agree. I often say that as well. I meet lots of leaders that are so busy, are working very hard and not getting the impact they want anymore because they're working very hard. They're exhausting themselves. And in the process, they're like losing sight of why they're doing things. And I love what you say. It's often by finding your purpose again that you find your motivation back without changing jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's connecting back to this, going inside, asking the right questions. And one of my taglines is inspiration through honest conversations. And I think it's the first honest conversation is not with other people, but with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Because there too, I see so many people, they have like a lot of things bottled up inside of them. And they like put a lid on it because they are afraid that, if I listen to that, maybe I'll crumble or I don't have a choice. So I love what you say. That's the first honest conversation is with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And the questions that often come up are like, what do I need in this moment? What do I need for me to move on and to connect with something meaningful in this moment? Because oftentimes we feel like we got to be strong in the face of all the things that are coming at us. And sure, strength is important for us to persevere. The challenges that are ahead of us are always there to test us. But at the same time, we have to, check in and say, where am I really struggling? And do I need to do something to recharge, to rest, and ensure that I have the energy and the motivation to move forward?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we also need to redefine what is strength, because strength is not especially, shutting everything down so that you continue with a lot of force. For me, this is not always a strength. It's even a weakness at some point.
Yeah. You just made me think about something which is interesting. This has been a quote that has been driving me since the moment I came to realize my purpose, and it came down to this, the ability to know that feelings are there for a reason, and you shouldn't stuff them down. You should feel feelings, and this comes from Peter Bregman, one of my favorite people in the world. He says that if you're willing to feel everything, you can have anything. And I'll say that again, just because I think it's such an important quote. It's like, if you're willing to feel everything, you can have anything. Because I feel so many of us they stuff their feelings down in the face of, I got to put a strong, I got to be strong in the moment here. I got to lead my people. I can't show them the emotions that are coming up for me right now, especially, thinking about the pandemic and all the challenging times we've gone through. And then you just muscle on. And then as you do that, you just continue to not deal with those feelings. If you're willing to feel those feelings, they're going to help you to see what's on the other side of it.
Yeah, and that's also when you become inspiring, because I remember I used to be the CEO also of a small organization, and I did that. I bottled my emotions, and I thought I have to be strong and continue. And I noticed I was alienating people by doing that, instead of really rallying them behind my vision. And it was only when I showed really what I was feeling and expressed what I was feeling that people got inspired.
Yeah. Yeah, there's this element of, we often think that like we're because we're hiding that part of us, that people are seeing us for who we truly are. But in fact, what we're doing is they're seeing right through the facade.
Yeah.
And they're seeing that we're hiding that, and in reality, that inauthenticity is what they're seeing and feeling. And that's not what you want to be messaging to people. When you don't say what's real, then people make up the story around what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to actually be transparent, be real, so that people will really get the message of who you really are.
Yeah. But then how do you do that? Being real, letting yourself feel what you need to feel when you're going from one meeting to the next, and from one email to the next, one project to the next. How do you do that? How do you start?
Well, I'll let you know when I figure it out. I'm kidding. No.
I thought I was going to get the answer, and
No. The reason why I joke about that is because it's an ongoing process. It's something we have to continue to train the muscle around this. There's an element of, making sure that we respect ourselves enough to put in the pause moments in the day, to really be the author of our days in a way that allows us to see that, sure, you could plan your day such that you're back to back to back, and allow other people to come in and creep into your calendar and create these moments that allow you to be there on all these calls and all these meetings back to back to back. Or you could set the intention that I'm important. My time is important. And what I need to do is I need to take control of that and create these pause moments, what I call these moments of pause that are basically, sparks of inspiration that you put throughout the day that allow you to reset, get back to who you are, allow you to refresh, so that when you go into those meetings, you're not feeling frazzled and feeling as though, what do they need from me now? Like, what am I walking into now? You can't be effective if you're going, literally this conversation yesterday, from 9 to 4 every day, or 9 to 5 every day, with meetings in the whole block of time. You have to allow yourself some times within that to just say, okay, how am I feeling? What do I need, to fuel myself, to connect with who I am right now? What's the next meeting asking of me? What does success look like in that next conversation? so that you can be effective. So I
Yeah,
think it's important.
yeah, and collaborate, because I feel that when you're not connected with yourself, how can you connect with others? If you're not even connected to yourself, others cannot connect with you neither.
Yeah, it's as I said earlier, there's this element of we think we're putting on a good show that we can put on the facade of like, oh, look how we're showing up. We're putting on a face of strength, of, look at me, I'm showing up and I'm putting on the view of being in control. But in reality, people see right through all of that. They know when you need a recharge, when you're not being yourself, when you're not being connected with them. So if you want to be the person who really is effective and is showing up for your people, you have to start with yourself and see that it's by connecting with yourself that you're able to lead others.
Yeah, completely agree. And so connecting with yourself is also connected with your purpose.
Yes, yes.
And so my question now is, how do you find your purpose when you're so busy and you have to bring bread on the table?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. And I love when when this question comes up, because this is like a paradox, right? There's an element of people wanting to do something that is really, strongly inside of them, but it's, oh, I'll do that when I find the time, when I get to it. But the reality is you can start to build the view of what your purpose is while you're doing your quote unquote day job. You continue to show up and look for the clues in the work you're doing. But occasionally you have to step back and say, what is it about the work I'm doing that got me here? What are the things that drew me into the work I'm doing now? The little things, the clues and themes throughout my life, throughout the work career that has got me to this point, that have been the clues that drew me here. So that's a starting point. It's kind of like doing a diagnostic, right in this moment, to say, before I leave my job or decide to do something drastic, let's just do a quick look at the past. What are the things, the strengths, the moments in your past that have brought you into this work? And then think about, what is it that, if you were to look into the future and think about who it is that you want to be, what is it that you want to experience? Don't think about what other people expect of you. Don't even think about like the limitations that are imposed on you. Envision who it is that you want to be. And that starts to give you this sense of this, who could I be right now? So now you're bringing this into the present. Who could I be right now, to start to connect with that? When you start to bring these elements, this what I call the time travel of coaching experience, the time traveling, that allows you to see certain elements of your life coming together in the present moment, and allow you to say, I see certain things that I want to lean into. And with that, I can now open up the box and see what new things I want to try. Maybe it's trying new things in the work that I'm doing. Maybe it's trying new things that are not related to work I'm doing at all, but I want to try them out by having conversations with people about, maybe I want to be a rock singer. I don't know. Maybe it's being an artist, but I don't want to necessarily just leap into it. I just want to start testing the waters. Mm-hmm. So there's something about that you takes tiny steps towards it. And as you do, you reflect and you look at what's showing up, and that starts to reveal what your purpose really is all about.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes what we think we want, and we're moving forward, and we realize, wow, it wasn't like I imagined it. So
yeah.
And also sometimes you get there, and once you are there, there's something else that you want. So also purpose is like a moving target. It's not something that is fixed in rock, in stone. Yeah.
There's something I want to mention about this, which is this. There's two things super quick. One of them is that inspiration that comes from your day-to-day interactions with the things around you, the things that light you up. They're like a communication with your soul's purpose. And so look for those things. What are the things that get you excited? What are the things that bring life to your work? And those are the clues that you want to be taking note of, because they're a communication with your true soul's purpose. Not to get too out there, but that's reality, is that it is something that's inside of you waiting to come out.
Yeah. And sometimes they say you don't have to look for the dream. Yeah. Because the dream is already inside of you. You just have to remove the layers and let it come up.
Absolutely. It's so powerful when you think of it that way, truly. So,
and another way that I see is sometimes you really go through really tough times, and then you get through it. And it's often that process that leads to your purpose. That was my case. So I really had like huge challenges that made me want to give up very often, but I didn't. Every time, I failed, I stood up again and I tried again and again and again. And now what I'm teaching is what I've been through. It was the mess. I think it was Tony Robbins that says your mess becomes your message.
Yeah, that's beautiful. But and I think that's great that you mentioned this, because not to be plugging the podcast, but so my podcast, The Virtual Campfire, one of the things that I really spend a lot of time there on is bringing people on who have been through a transformational moment. And what I think is so important about it is that I have people walk through their story through what's called flashpoints, these points in their story that have ignited their gifts into the world. And I think the great thing about that is that it is in those moments that have made you question your existence, or question, what now? Like, what do I do with this pivotal point in my life that it reveals your gifts, which in essence, when your gifts are revealed, those are part of your purpose. So I think what you said is so right on the money when it comes to, talking about how this all comes to being. Those things you endure, those themes throughout your life, sometimes they're as early as your childhood, and they continue to show up and tell you, hey, wake up, it's time for you to do the thing that you're called to do, until you do it.
Yeah, exactly. And the message becomes bigger and bigger, and the crisis becomes bigger and bigger. But still, it's hard. It's hard because I know sometimes I'm regularly in this phase. It's not like you do it once and then, okay, you have your purpose and it's okay for the rest of your life. No, every level comes a new devil.
Yes.
So sometimes when I'm in this phase when I'm feeling really bad, because you can feel like shit in those moments. I can think like, I'm really feeling bad. I know I'm growing. I know I'm supposed to learn something from this, but damn, this is really hard.
It's one of the things that comes to mind around purpose, and I wanted to share it now, is this element of like, you have those feelings, you have those moments when it's like starts to come to being. And then you say to yourself, now I have this insight, this knowledge. But as the old quote says, like, knowledge without action is useless. And so the biggest thing you can do about your purpose when it starts to reveal itself is to lean into it and say, what can I do to put this into action? What can I do to make this something that, even if it doesn't become like immediate, because none of this is immediate, it takes time to really reveal itself and to really become something. What is the next thing you can do to test that?
Yeah. Great advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've also written a book, Climbing the Right Mountain. And so in our little discussion before the podcast, I was telling you why are so many leaders climbing the wrong mountain, putting so much effort in climbing the wrong mountain?
Well, there's a couple of reasons, but I'll start with the most obvious one is we tend to get stuck in this path of like what the world, society in general tells us that success looks like. We define success based on what, what everyone else thinks success looks like. Like you go and you say, well, you should want to be the C-suite. You should want to have all these things and the material success. Mm-hmm. And so you start to drive down that path of saying, okay, if I don't measure up to what everyone else sees as success on social media, then I am a failure. And so that means I got to work even harder. And that means that I got to do the things that, even though I don't like what I'm doing, I'm going to do them. And that might mean sacrificing things that I care about, like spending time with family, my health, my time with friends, so many things along the way. That's the thing that a lot of us find is you get to this top of this mountain and then you realize I'm here. Okay. I got to the place where quote unquote, I've made it.
Yeah.
And I don't like who I am on the inside. Mm-hmm. And I don't like the view and I want to get on a different mountain. And so I think that's where a lot of people find themselves is that, unfulfilled on the inside. Although on the outside, people see this picture of success.
Yeah.
So climbing the right mountain is not without its struggles. I'm not saying, oh, we shouldn't want to be a CEO. We shouldn't want to be striving for big things. We should absolutely do it, but do it for the right reasons. Do it based on your own terms of success. You define it based on who you want to be and how you want to be, and not based on what everyone else says you should want for yourself.
And that's sometimes so hard.
Yeah. And sometimes it starts at a very young age. I mean, I know that from my story, that's how, I love my parents, God rest their soul, they're both passed, but they programmed us at a young age to want a certain thing and work hard to get it. And yeah, anyways, I digress.
Yeah, no. And it's hard to free yourself from that. When I started, I also had the titles like you. We were both in the corporate world. Mm. And then you start as a coach or as a consultant or whatever. And you are at this network event and where people look at the badges. And I remember in the beginning, people would look at my badge. And in the past, they were immediately interested in me and they stayed and they talked just because I had the title CEO. But then when I only had the title of a coach or a consultant or just the name of my company, which wasn't famous, then I would really see people look at it and then go away. And it was hard at the beginning. So I was following my purpose, but I really had to adapt to that phase.
Yeah. And this is why it's not to diminish people's hard work, because honestly, the title, it is a badge of honor in a sense. People say like, I worked hard to get here, and that's great, but titles are all made up. Mm-hmm. They're all made up. And honestly, like that's the one thing that is really challenging is that if you're going to measure yourself just based on that title, instead look at the things that you've accomplished and be proud of what you've accomplished. Many people I run into, and that's why I talk about accomplished leaders, is that they accomplish something totally, I'll say badass, accomplish things that like most of us would be like, are you kidding me? That's amazing. And then they'll just be like, yeah, whatever. And on to the next thing, because they diminish, they don't celebrate. They diminish the things they've done, and then they move on to the next thing because they see someone who's right around the corner or who's on these bigger social media, who they've got their mindset on the next thing, and it's like, wow, okay, well, good for you, but at the end of the day, measure yourself based on who you were yesterday, not who, don't try to be Oprah Winfrey and and try to be like Simon Sinek or some, Elon Musk or whoever it may be. Instead, just be the best you can be. And what'll happen is when you look at the totality of your life, what you'll find is that you'll be knocking it out of the park and have a legacy you can be so proud of.
Yeah, completely
I get excited.
Agree. No, completely agree. And I notice with myself that I'm the most successful when I let go of the need to be successful.
Yes.
It's when I compare myself to others and think, oh, they're doing better. They are already having a company with several million euros. And then I think, I'm nowhere. And I'm looking to do things to be successful. That's when I'm not successful. I'm successful when I manage to stay myself and connected to my purpose.
Yeah. And when you do that, as this comes back to our conversation from earlier, which is to say that when you show up from a place of like being grateful for who you are, being who you are, in a place that says, I'm proud of myself. I am open to collaborating with others and to seeing what's possible in an abundant mindset, then what happens is you radiate that and people connect with that.
Yeah.
But if you come from this place of like, oh gosh, like I'm not making it and this is not happening. And like, I'm not, oh, woe is me. I'm a victim. And nobody they don't feel that. And then they say, okay, well, on to the next person, because I can't work with this person if they're going to be that way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same as a leader when you want people to follow you. If you do it for like the right reasons, by being yourself, your most authentic self, it's so much more inspiring than when you just do it for the wrong reasons or because you're afraid that you will not deliver. And that's what I see a lot, people being afraid of not delivering what is expected from them.
Yeah. But I also want to make sure that people don't have this feeling of like, oh, it's always going to be like happy and optimism. That's not what this is. It's about also knowing that I don't have the answers, but at the same time, I'm also very open to being wrong and open to navigating into the unknown, because that's what I'm being asked to do. And that's okay.
Yeah.
If this is something that is part of what you're into, as a person on my team, as a person part of my organization, then awesome. Let's do this together. If this is not your bag, this is not what you're into, it's okay. There's plenty of people out there who are not me.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I also often say, as long as you're happy, continue doing what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, if you're really happy and connected, because there are a lot of people who are like, they have numbed themselves, so they are not really happy, but they're not unhappy neither. They're just numb.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I'm just going to say this small thing from my book, which is I created a 4x4 that described a few different people as how they show up, whether they're fulfilled, unfulfilled, or showing up as doing versus being. And there's this one group that I identified as being fulfilled doing, where people kind of get comfortable in the status quo. They just show up. And it's not to say that they're bad people. It's just, they just get kind of like numbed to if I keep on showing up, don't rock any boats, don't do anything that's going to make anyone raise any flags, then I'll be okay.
Yeah,
that's great for a moment. But
is it fulfilled and doing or unfulfilled and doing?
It's fulfilled in doing, because what happens is they feel fulfillment in the sense that they're okay for themselves to be in this space. At some point, they may fall out of fulfillment because they may stop and say, wait a minute, what am I doing? I've been just kind of cranking this out. And all of a sudden I feel as though, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
there's also the unfulfilled doing, which is to say that you're doing, and you're saying, why am I not feeling satisfied? And you get to this place where you're on the verge of burnout. And you're saying, why is it that I do so much, but I don't get what I want? And then you have to turn it around and say, it's because I'm trying to do so much, and I have to stop doing so much. I have to actually slow down and say, what's the right thing? Who do I have to be right now? And I think that's the turn that needs to be made.
Yeah, I love it. That's what I tell my leaders all the time. I say, in today's time, it's not about knowing more stuff. It's not about having more stuff. It's not about doing more stuff. Now it's time to simply be.
Yeah, it's a race to the bottom, honestly, when you think about it. And I say bottom from the point of view of, you may feel as though this is getting me to the top, but at some point that bottom falls out and you find yourself at this place where you're saying, I'm burnt out, depressed, I've lost meaning. I know that feeling a bit too well. So I've been there in my past life.
Yeah. And what I also see is that, when you're doing and people need you and what you did delivered something, even though you are slowly exhausting yourself when you're not in this purpose, aligned with your purpose. But I think there is this dopamine rush that a lot of leaders are into. You really are addicted to this dopamine, and it's not only with your phone, it's just with people needing you and you being necessary and delivering things, and you get that rush, but that's not making you happy.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, there's people who, I'll say people, but it's really me, you've gone, who have gone years without taking the time off because they think like, oh, I can't take time off. I'm too much in demand. I'm too much, I'm so important to this organization that if I take time off, they'll crumble. And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And so, there's this element of you have to make yourself, as a leader, you have to put yourself in a place where you are unnecessary. Exactly. And although that sounds awful and it sounds like counterintuitive, it actually is beautiful because it actually creates a situation where you say, I've now made it as a leader to be able to say that my team knows what to do, how to do it, how to think like me when I'm away, how to, make the right decisions. And when I come back in, they update me and they say, this is what we did, how we did it. What do you think? And you can say, yeah.
Yeah. And when you
I'll see you later.
Yeah. And when you make yourself unnecessary, you create a lot of space.
Yeah.
And space for something else. I often say I climbed the ladder in an organization because I always made myself unnecessary. And then the next thing showed up that I wanted to do or... So, yeah. Yeah.
I keep on thinking about this. I've been writing a piece about how you should have a goal that's so big that you alone cannot do it. And the bigger the goal, the better. I mean, there's the UN sustainability, the UN goals that they set for 2030. They're so big, they're massive. But they get a lot of people aligned on how to solve those goals. And I think it's beautiful when you get people thinking big. Like, what is the big goal that if I didn't collaborate with someone else to get it done, it would never get done?
Completely agree. Although I see a lot of people getting there with the wrong mindset, because I believe you should have like crazy goals to change the way you think and think differently, but those should not be your budget, because then you really think like, I will never make this. There are so many leaders who it's important for them to hit their targets and to feel good about it. And so when you make it your budget, with your bonus and everything around it aligned to that, then it's not, then it brings more stress than really energy. So I
Yeah.
really love big goals, but realistic budgets.
I love that clarification. And my prior life was in finance. So I love that you say that, because there was always an element of like, when you make plans, they have to be like well informed with measured risks. And you kind of take that tack and know that those plans are going to be thrown out the window eventually. But you have to make sure that they're realistic. And but yeah, I think about goals, they're about putting you in direction of something, not necessarily always to attain them exactly as they were laid out, but to really give you some directional sense of where you want to go. And I think that's important. So when you have a big goal, it doesn't matter if you didn't get to the moon. What matters is you at least put yourself in trajectory to those goals.
Yeah, away. Yeah. No, completely agree. But I'm saying this because I see so many people also being crushed by every year having higher and higher targets that they think they're not realistic. So why even try? I will not make it. And I know I also had that. So I had private equity shareholders, and sometimes they asked for me a very optimistic budget, and then they removed all the investments and the costs, and I still had to make the revenues. Well, I would say for me, then I feel as a failure every time because I never reached that. So I need like the really big dreams for your thinking, but realistic expectations for your targets and financial targets, especially.
You just made me think of one of my favorite sayings that I share with people, is that I say that expand your vision, narrow your focus. And the reason why I love that is because oftentimes that when people feel stuck, they're like in this place where they're like, they haven't dreamt big enough, or they haven't thought about a way out of their situation. So it's like, you got to expand your vision, see bigger than what you currently are seeing. So,
as if everything is possible.
Yeah, everything is possible. Not, we're not talking about budgets yet, but you have to expand out and see what are the options that are available to you first. And so once you've done that, then you have to narrow your focus to realize I can't do it all. In fact, I personally can't do it all. So what I have to realize is that who can I enlist to ensure that when I'm focused on the actual execution, how do I get that execution done? What am I going to do next? And what can I have other people do next? Either way, it has to be like, what is the focus of that, the next movement that I'm going to take from that view of options?
Yeah, but that's so hard when we're in an economy that is driven by figures and really predictions. You have to predict your future earnings, and everything is based on that. And that at the same time, it limits people, I find, because then they think, no, that's not possible. And it limits people to think as if everything was possible. But then when you think like everything is possible, please don't translate that immediately in figures, because otherwise people get afraid and won't move then. It kills creativity.
It reminds me of a story from way back in the day. When I was in my corporate life, I remember, working with a CEO who often would push back to Wall Street and say, I could give you these projections and tell you exactly how things are going to play out, but irregardless, what's most important is, this is a biotech company, is what are we going to do for the patients, and what are we going to do to help them? And that is what's most important. I don't really, you can discount my stock, you can do whatever you want to disparage our ratings, but ultimately what's most important is how are we helping patients?
Yeah. And that's why profit follows purpose. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so I think that's what's, you're right, that we shouldn't be attributing numbers. And honestly, the right companies with the right intentions, they'll come in and they'll say, okay, great, I get it that money helps us to stay in business. It helps us to flow, to flow with ease. But ultimately, we have to get back to the foundations of why we're doing this. Mm-hmm. And if we're doing it for the right reasons, and we know what the next step we're going to take, then that should be the only thing that's most important right now.
Yeah, completely agree.
That creates value.
Yeah, the real value.
Yeah.
And yeah. So maybe we can talk now a little bit more about you, because this podcast is Rebel Leader with a Heart. So I'm also curious to know, what is your rebel side? I already saw a little tattoo there when you were moving.
Oh, yes.
But otherwise, what is your rebel side?
Yeah, I would say that for me, first of all, the tattoo comes from my time traveling in India, which was an amazing experience. I'm big on adventure. I love climbing mountains. I love being out there in the world.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, one of the parts of it for me is that it's not just about, okay, like put me on a beach and I'll enjoy the sand and all that. I like going and experiencing, what it's like for people in different parts of the world and how they are experiencing their area of the world and their history that brought them to where they are. Like, I've been to places like Cambodia, and I've been to Poland. I studied business in Eastern Europe. So for me, I rebel for, really an understanding of people. I rebel for people's stories. And I really want to make sure that people get heard and their voices are really, shared the world as much as possible. Because I think for so long, I held myself back from being truly who I was. I'm going to share a small little story just to give you an insight into this, is that I was an artist as a child. I drew paintings, and I drew with pens and pencils, and then painted a bit. And I was all about creating emotional experiences with rooms, very interesting things. But I decided to throw that all away and go into pre-med as a student, and then eventually got into business. And the reality is that I saw myself as, I'm a finance person, so therefore I put myself in this box of, this is who I am. I have to act a certain way, I have to be a certain way. And that defining myself in a certain way really was restricting, until I allowed myself to free myself from that box and see that I can be the creative person who I was. I can be the explorer, the adventurer who I've always wanted to be and used to be. And that's what really got me to open up to seeing that I can be a vehicle for helping people to unleash their voices in the world. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I love what you say. And it comes back to being. Who do I want to be? Because once you change the who I want to be, you start acting differently and get different kind of results.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I do have my bad days. So there are days
when we go back to our fears and what others expect.
But that's okay. And then what I do is I reconnect with, what it is that lights me up. What are the things that I'm here for? And then it brings me back to center, and it gets me back into the work that I do. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. So where can people find you?
Well, the best place for people to find me is my website, which is inspiredpurposecoach.com. And if you go there, you can take your assessment to find out where you are in your leadership journey. You can also check out my podcast, Virtual Campfire podcast, which has been a great experience for me. For me, I feel honored to be able to be the vehicle for people's stories. And the last thing I'd mention is my book is on Amazon. It's called Climbing the Right Mountain, and it's a brief read, so it's not like a big novel. But the reason why I did that is it's on purpose. I wanted people to really take it in and see that it's packed with a lot of great insights that will get you where you want to go really quickly. So
it's for busy leaders.
exactly. And
Great.
thank you so much. This has been so enjoyable.
Yeah, I also love the conversation. Thank you very much. I loved Tony's energy and presence, and I hope you felt it too, and got some great strategies to live a more fulfilling life. It's often about small things, like Tony says, looking for clues in your job and everyday life, and then taking small steps towards that purpose. You can dream big as if everything is possible, and we'd really encourage you to do that. But then start with small steps. That's how you become unstoppable.